30th chapter of the book of Mishlei, the penultimate chapter, Divrei Agur ben Yakeh Masanu Magever Le'itiel Ve'uchal. The words of Agur, the son of Yakeh, a man of Masa, the speech of the man of Utiel, Etiel, and Ukal. So it's not clear who these people are. Presumably they are different. Different scholars. There's midrashics that says midrashim that say that it's the words of Shlomo, and there are different definitions. Agur means he gathered them and he understood them, and ukal is to vomit. And so he vomited out these words, but on a more pshat level, it's just other scholars, other wisdom literature that was added. If we so remember back in about chapter 30, talked about how these are now more words of Shlomo, which were added, which were disseminated by Chizkiyahu hundreds of years after the death of Shlomo. So it's very possible that these are other scholars whose words, other brilliant men whose words came into this book as well. Let's continue. Verse 2. Kiva aranochi meish v'lo vinata adam li. I am brutish. I am less than a man. I lack common sense. I've not learned wisdom, nor do I possess knowledge of God. Mi ala shamayim v'yayrad. Mi asaf ruach b'chofnav. Mi tzarar mayim b'simla. Mi hekim kol afse'aretz. Ma shmo, ma shem b'no ki teda. Right, so I don't know anything about God, but I can tell you the following. Who ascended to the heaven and came down? Who gathered up the wind in the hollow of his hand? Who wrapped the waters in his garment? Who established all the extremities of this earth? What is his name or his son's name, if you know it? We know this person. Of course, it's referring to God, who went up and down, who can put everything, all the wind in their hand, it's only God can do this thing. And then we see in verse 5, Kol imrat Eloha tzrufa, magenhu lecho simbo. Every word of God is pure, a shield to those who take refuge in them. Right? God is the one who did everything. God is the one whose word is pure. And don't add on to God's word lest he indict you and you be proved a liar. Allusion here to maybe the idea of negative theology, not giving too many descriptions of God. The more descriptions you give, the worse it is. Or other things, such as the Gemara, which talks about how we say God, we describe God in Shemona as Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibor, Vahanora, and you cannot add on to that. Those were God. That's where the descriptions of God given in the Torah by our great people in the Tanakh, and to add on to that, you cannot do. Here we have another verse. To continue in verse 7, you'll see there are a lot of numbers in this chapter. Shtaim sha'alti meitach, al timnami meni b'tar mamba. Two things I ask you, don't deny them before me. Before them from me, before I die. What did I ask? Shav udvar kazav harchek mimeni reish v'osher al titenli hatrifeni lech ukai. Keep lies and false words for me. Give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me my daily bread. Right? I'm not asking for too much. I just want my daily bread. Penes bav chichashti v'amarta mi Adonai peni v'reish v'ganavti v'tafasti shem Elohai. Lest you're sated, and I will begin saying, "Who is God?" Or I become impoverished and I take to theft and profane the name of my God. Right? If sometimes you get so rich, you have everything, and you don't need God. I can do everything. Kochi v'otzem yadia saliyat hachayil, like we say. Al talshein eved el Adonai peni kalelcha v'yashamta. Do not inform on a slave to his master, lest he curse you and you incur guilt. Right? Don't inform on your master. Right? Don't say these bad things about God. You're going to get yourself in trouble. We're in verse 11. Pasuk Yud Aleph Dor Aviv Yikalel V'Etimo Lo Yivarech. Right? There are people, or there is a generation of men that curses its fathers and brings no blessing to its mother. The generation gap, right? What did Bob Dylan say? I can't think of the exact words, or whatever it is about your mother and father don't understand. Dor tahor beinav umitzato lo ruchatz, a breed that thinks itself pure, though it's not washed on its filth. Dor mara muenav afafav yinaseu, a breed so haughty and bearing so superlicious, right? So supercilicious. We saw earlier in this chapter, or in this book, rather in this chapter, so much about the Musar Avicha, the Musar Imecha, the Torah Avicha. Listen to what your parents say. Listen to what your parents say. There's always going to be the generational gap. It's only become worse with all the technology over the last 50, 100 years. But this book is about not rejecting the wisdom of the earlier generations. Don't reject it. Don't be so haughty that you think you know better. Dor charav, vot shinav uma'achalot mital atav le'echol aniyim me'eretz v'avyonim me'edam, a breed whose teeth, the generation whose teeth are swords, whose jaws are knives, ready to devour the poor of the land, the needy among men. They go after them, right? This is the second generation. And again, when we talk about generational stuff in this book and advice to the book, even though this is not coming, it appears from Shlomo, midrashically, we have that understanding. But if it's Shlomo to Rechavam, who doesn't take the advice of the elder council, his father's advisors, takes the advice of the younger council, his advisors, people his age, and it causes the rift, it causes the separation into two kingdoms, the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. Now, of course, we've already been told that would happen based upon Shlomo's behavior, but that is the action that causes it to happen. Him saying, "I'm going to keep the taxes high." Let's continue with verse 15, pasuk Tetvav. La alukash vanot hav shalosh. Hine lo tispana arba lo amru hon. So here we start to see the numbers, like I talked about or mentioned earlier. The leech has 2 daughters. Give and give. 3 things are insatiable. 4 never say enough, right? So difficult to understand what necessarily this is, but what all this is talking about. But they're say who say it refers to wealth. You have 2 daughters. What do they want? Give and give. They have 3 things they're insatiable for. Never enough, right? Just the more you have, the more people you have dependent upon you, the more they're going to ask for. Sha'ol va'otzer racham eretz lo sava mayim ve'esh lo amra hon. Sha'ol is a barren woman, right? The netherworld, the place you go down, you can't come back. Earth that cannot get enough water, and fire, which never says, which never is enough. There are those who say midrash is talking about sexual activity. Once you go down and you are allured, and this is all that you want, it's never enough. It's always just more and more and more for those who unfortunately become addicted, which is true about addiction for anything. Ayin tilag la'av vuz li kat aim yikruha or venacha v'yochlua v'nei nasher, the eye that mocks a father and disdains the respect due to a mother. The ravens of the brook will gouge out. Young eagles will devour it. Those who say, this is referring to sort of the face of the old face and ripping apart the old face, the idea of experience, the Vadarta Pnei Zaken that we saw earlier, the old face, to get the experience that's shown on a person who's been through their life. 3 things are beyond me. 4 I cannot fathom. That's pretty good. I think there are hundreds or thousands of things that are beyond me, but here it might only be 3 or 4 that I've looked into, but 3 things that I can't understand. Derech hanesher bashamayim, derech nachash alei tzur, in verse 19, pasuk Yutet, derech uniyah b'lev yam, v'derech gever ba'alma, how an eagle makes its way over the sky, how a snake makes its way over a rock, how a ship makes its way through the high seas, how a man has his way with a woman. So, right, this is before Newton, right? This is before gravity, but I think it's more of a philosophical question. How do these things happen? How do people make it over? How do you get past the difficulties? How do you fly through the wind? How do you make it over those rocks that are in your way? In verse 20, such is the way of an adulteress. She eats, she wipes her mouth and says, I have done no wrong. Right? You have a stain, and you could just wipe that stain off. You pretend that it's not there. And obviously, eating here is not referring to having bagels and lox and cream cheese for lunch. Continue verse 21. Tachat shalosh ragzai eretz, tachat arbalo tuchal se'et. The earth shudders at 3 things, at 4 which it cannot bear. So there's a 4th thing, which is not just a shuddering, but the complete wipe away. Tachat eved ki imloch v'naval ki yispalechem, a slave who becomes a king, a scoundrel who has tons of food. Tachat snua ki tivba'el v'shivcha ki tirash givrata, a loathsome woman who gets married, a slave girl who supplants her mistress. So these are four different things that are shocking and surprising. And right here, you think, oh, the slave deserves to be free. That sounds good to me, but it's something that's surprising and something which didn't make sense in the ancient world, that these wise men cannot bear. How do such things happen? Think back to what I just said earlier. How does that snake make it over that rock? How do we make it over the rock? How do these things happen? How do these changes happen? Continuing pasuk chaf daled, arba'a heim kitane aretz vehem chachamim, mechukamim. There are four are among the tiniest on earth, yet they are the wisest of the wise. What are these? Hanimalim am loaz v'achinu b'kayitz lachman. Ants are a group, a nation, as it were, without power, yet they prepare food for themselves in the summer, right? The strength of the ants, the way they can build their holes, etc., etc. Two, number 26, Shefanim am lo atzum. The badger is also a folk, it's a group without great strength. Yasimu b'sela beitam, yet it makes its home in the rock, of course, due to its biting away. And we've all been to seen a badger home, different places, etc., etc. Beavers, badgers. Melech ein la arbeh, the locusts have no king, yet they all march forth in formation. Right, Bnei Yisrael in the book of Shoftim, book of Shmuel, they ask for a king to lead them in battle. They're not united, they're not together. We need a king, we need a leader to lead us together in battle. The locusts have no leader, but there they go, marching in formation. And finally, 28, simamit, biadayim, titapes vihi behechale melech. You can catch a lizard in your hand, yet it is found in royal places. There are others who say this doesn't mean a lizard. There are others who say what it means is it's a spider. But either way, seemingly what it says, you can catch in your hand, yet you go into a palace, you go into a fancy place, and there can be spiders, they can be lizards running around. It's easy to catch, yet they are everywhere despite your attempts, and so many people successfully catching them. Let's continue in verse 29. There are three that are stately of stride, and four that carry themselves well. What are these? The lion is the mightiest among the beasts, and it recoils before none, right? It strides confidently. Zarzir motnayim otayish, umelech alkum imo, the greyhound, the he-goat, the king who no one dares to resist. Im navalta bit nasev im zamot yad lapeh. If you have been arrogant, if you've been a schemer, then clap your hands to your mouth, as opposed to, right, these other things. These are people you should have some shame to you. You've been a schemer, you've been arrogant, you've been, right, cover up your mouth. Ki mitz chalav yotzi chema, umitz af yotzi dam, umitz apayim yotzi riv. Because just like milk under pressure produces butter, and a nose under pressure produces blood. Ow, sounds a lot worse than the milk. So patience under pressure produces strife. So, right, it seems like everything's going to be okay, but ultimately, the pressure that's going to come, you're going to be put to shame. You're going to suffer. You're going to have to clap your hand on your mouth, so that you stop scheming, that you stop being arrogant, that you stop being scandalous. Because for now, it's working. But just like the pressure on these things is going to cause pain and going to cause suffering, that's going to happen to you. So a strange chapter, a lot of, some allusions, different things to things that we saw earlier in the book, but really just it seems a lot of different things. The numerical stuff that's a little different than many of the other things we've had. Just this 3 and 4 we've had in the past. We've had where we talk about the 3 and 4. Was it back in the book of was it Malachi? No, it wasn't Malachi. It was one of the books of the Asar. Maybe it was I can't think of who it was. Micha, or talks about the three. The locusts came in with 3, but the 4th destroyed it all. We have that earlier in books in the Tanakh. The idea of sort of being able to survive 3 infestations, but the 4th is too much. And here also just these different numbers, and eventually sort of it comes too much. So it's just a chapter that seems to be sort of a little bit different, a lot of things placed together. Tomorrow we'll continue with the last chapter of the book of Mishlei, a chapter that we are familiar with, and maybe it's good it's on a Friday, and maybe whether you do usually or not, it could have hopefully one extra layer of meaning come Friday night, when it is oftentimes was recited by many people at the Shabbat table.